Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And I am Rich McFadden in for Greg Corombos this week on your Three Martini Lunch, along with Jim Garrity from the National Review, going over your good, bad, and crazy martinis for the day. And a couple of crazy ones for you. All across the board, Jim, I'd say they're all kind of crazy a little bit.
Yeah. there's good crazy, bad crazy, and crazy.
Yeah, there's just crazy. All right, so let's start out with the good martini. It looks like Comey's giving the GOP a little bit of ammo here today while he's testifying.
Sure. A lot of folks had said it was a bad idea for House Republicans to invite FBI Director James Comey to testify about his decision regarding Hillary and her private email server. Comey undoubtedly came prepared, but look, he offered that press conference on July 5th. For about 14 minutes of the press conference, he lays out this devastating case against Hillary Clinton, saying that she lied, saying that everything she told the public was not true. And he cites a statute that does not require intent. Many folks have pointed out that you can get prosecuted for mishandling classified information or failing to protect it. Even if you weren't trying to commit treason, even if you weren't trying to commit espionage, you have a duty and a responsibility to protect that stuff. And it's not just, this is something you should do. It's not just, an abstract rule. No, this is actually under law. You sign an oath, for promising to do this. And so the 15th minute of that press conference, he says no. People are up in arms about it. And for a lot of this hearing on the Hill, Comey's looked and sounded pretty good. But at one point he says, look, if Hillary Clinton worked at the FBI, she could be fired and lose her security clearance. Okay. Why? We're just going to hand wave it away over at the State Department. I'm not quite clear on. And later on, he kind of look, just because someone is not prosecuted doesn't mean they should not have consequences. Well, right now, Hillary Clinton is running for president of the United States. What consequences can we give her if we're not going to have her?
What does that mean? Does that mean I'm passing the buck? Somebody else should have to take her out to the woodshed now? What does that mean?
I was going to say, I think the most clear, obvious look, if she were Secretary of State, she'd have to go, right? Or if she had any other job where firing was an option, they would do so. And, she left the position of Secretary of State at the end of 2012, beginning of 2013. So what do you do now? Now the question before the country is, do we promote this woman, right? Do we put her in another position where she's looking at tons of classified information? And oh, by the way, apparently also Comey's gotten a lot of grief today about saying, look, we couldn't determine malicious intent. Look, what about FOIA laws? What about congressional inquiries? Why do you keep all your stuff on a special private server that cannot be reached by other government authorities, if not to hide it? What was the other one? Your initial claim was convenience, but we now know she lied about it. She used multiple devices. The information was on multiple servers and things like this. So Comey is not coming across as terrific as everybody hoped. At least he initially looked good. Democrats are carrying the water trying to defend them. But I think the argument from Comey that, look, this is very serious, and if it's not a crime, then it's a firing offense. This strengthens the argument for Republicans saying you cannot promote Hillary Clinton after this. You cannot put her back into a position of even more responsibility after this. But maybe this just foreshadows our crazy martini in a couple minutes here.
Well, this is like a little tennis match, and I'm trying to figure out which side of the court this ball lays on right now. Is this good for the GOP? Would it have been better for her to have been indicted, and then we go through that whole thing for the next few months? Or is this just something handed to them that they can use as a weapon, and it works out better in the end?
I remember thinking at the time, this is when the belief was that the FBI would recommend indictment and Lynch would say no and Comey would resign. I remember thinking that if you don't have your day in court, you don't get the opportunity to be declared not guilty.
Right.
And that there was no way to appeal a FBI director's resignation. Now, we all know, of course, Comey seemed to be on board with that. A lot of people are speculating, was he strong-armed into this? Was he ordered into this? Was he, blackmailed or bribed or something like that? At this point, we have no evidence of that, although it certainly seems like a very odd sequence of events to lay out this extensive argument, but then to say, we can't prove motive, so never mind. But the fact that, it almost would have been easier if he came out and said, no, it doesn't mind. It doesn't matter. We couldn't find any crime here. Let's move on. To go out and offer this really, dark portrait of her time there, and not just her, but all of her staff, and effectively the entire State Department not taking security seriously.
It's a bit of a gift.
Yeah.
It really is.
Normally, a Republican candidate could take advantage of that, he said.
Yes. Yeah. All right, well, before we get to that, we have to jump into our bad martini. It seems like we can't go a month without some kind of a police shooting, and this one looks like it's probably going to be in the news for a little while. another black man shot by a white cop. And we have video footage there where you really can't see everything, but you can almost see everything. And we have witnesses that are going to say one thing and the police are saying another, and it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, I think what's most depressing about this is how quickly folks lined up behind two arguments that strike me as nonsense. Now, maybe you see this a little differently, Rich, or listeners will. But one argument I don't like is this idea of, well, this proves the cops are racist. No. First of all, there are 900,000 or more than that of law enforcement officers in the United States, right? So people talk about the cops, like as if they're one giant monolith, right? Obviously, you have 900,000 law enforcement officers. You're going to have bad cops in those ranks. But equally obviously, most of them are really good people who are doing their very best under tough circumstances. They risk our lives for us. We don't want to paint all cops by the actions of a few.
Correct.
The flip side of that is you could never second guess somebody who's in a circumstance like that. Really? Never? Ever? We can never look at a cop's decision and say, no, that was the wrong decision in that situation. That was a needless taking of a life in a circumstance where deadly force was not justified. We can never do that. It's been extremely frustrating. So I actually went back. Credit to the Washington Post. They've collected and compiled a lot of data on this. And there are two conclusions you can draw about police shootings throughout the year. One is, you look at the sheer number of people who were shot dead by the police in 2015, it was 990 people. Of those, only 93 were unarmed. All right, so we're talking about 10% of that. And of those, 38 were African Americans who were unarmed. So now we're looking at in the category of about 4% of all police shootings involved unarmed black individuals. This year, similar kind of numbers on a similar pace. 505 people shot dead by police, 37 were unarmed, 13 were black and unarmed. So despite this claim, including a columnist for the New York Times to say this is now so common, it's become routine. Actually, it's not that common and routine. It isn't happening every day. It isn't happening in every community. Thankfully, it's relatively rare.
It's just the only ones you see on the news.
Indeed. If you find out, about 1,000 of these are happening per year, a handful end up becoming national news and covered for several days. The flip side is that of those who are unarmed and being shot dead by police, they are disproportionately African American. It was about 40% last year, about 35% this year. You run the numbers, you look at the census, African Americans are about 12% of the U.S. population. So, is that a reason for concern? Absolutely. But I have found it so frustrating that as soon as this happens, it's like everybody lines up and takes sides before we know the facts of the case. Now, we have two videos of the one in Baton Rouge. Now, there's also been a second shooting up in Minnesota that's become very controversial. We have a process in place for determining this. Now, is it going to work? I'm glad to see this is in the hands of the FBI, having been critical of the FBI in the first Martini of today. But, there are legitimate, reasonable questions to be raised here. And police officers' behavior, they need to be accountable to the public. Having said that, to take these handful of incidents and say, this tells you everything you need to know about cops. No, it doesn't. And you can definitely feel the palpable frustration of good cops who feel like they're being tainted by the behavior of bad cops. And so it feels like we are on this very predictable merry-go-round of news and the way this operates, and the way these narratives dominate the coverage instead of the actual facts of the case.
Is a white cop in a black neighborhood in Washington, D.C., in Anacostia. And he's 2 years away from retirement, and we talk about this, and it's frustrating for them because they are doing the work, and he does get along with the people in his community, except for the guys he has to chase down and tackle and put in handcuffs. But the long-term effect of this is they're going to have a hard time getting good recruits for all police departments in the future, because who wants to be under this kind of scrutiny? Who wants to make that kind of mistake when you're up against it? And it's tough to say, I'm going to get into this for my career, for my life, and I have kids, I have a wife. Who wants to put that kind of pressure on themselves? You think you've got it bad now? If the media is out there saying bad cops, give it another 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, as much as, look, for those of us who are not in law enforcement, those of us who thankfully never feel like we're going to encounter law enforcement in a way that's dangerous to us, we can feel really helpless about this. Well, here's where in which the media, by actually looking at the data and looking at the actual facts and kind of saying, all right, no, this is actually how rare this is, would probably do the public some good instead of trying to fan the flames of anger and saying, oh, this has become routine and common.
So props to the Washington Post.
Yes, we'll see how this shakes out, but Just feels very depressing and predictable, and it'll be forgotten in a couple of days, and then some other shooting will suddenly become national headlines.
On to the crazy martini for today, and once again, it involves Donald Trump not being able just to sit down and let Hillary Clinton burn. He has to address everything that anybody throws at him. If anybody gives him any kind of a shot on Twitter, he has to respond. And today is a gem.
I was about to say, has Hillary Clinton had a worse day this year than July 5th when Comey went out and made his case? Yes, it was good she wasn't getting prosecuted, but the portrait that Comey painted was pretty dark, painted her as incompetent, sloppy, that everyone around her basically had the same attitudes. They didn't take classified information seriously or protect it. You got to think this has got to be as good an opportunity, as good a gift as Donald Trump is going to get. So what does he go out and do the next day? Oh, let's talk about how great Saddam Hussein was about fighting terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's strike number one. Then yesterday, he's giving this speech out in Cincinnati, and he goes on at length about the controversy of the six-pointed star on the tweet set out under his name. And he keeps insisting, oh, it's a sheriff's star. Everybody who's claiming it, they're the real anti-Semites. The controversy had started to die down. And for some inexplicable reason, Trump felt the need to bring it back up and vehemently defend himself and say the tweet shouldn't have been taken down and nothing. So again, we're talking about Trump and the star instead of the alleged crimes and the indisputable vehement lying of Hillary Clinton and reckless behavior. And then last night, which just almost feels like a parody, Trump has a picture of frozen coloring books. And they have, on the cover it says with 50 stickers, and the with 50 stickers is in the shape of a six-pointed star. And Trump tweets, "Where is the outrage for this Disney book? Isn't this the Star of David also? Dishonest media." Hashtag frozen. Rich, if Trump were having a breakdown, how would we know? How different would it be than what we're seeing right now? Or you could say, gee, Hillary's just had a terrible week, and he's tweeting about this, what's on the cover of a frozen sticker book. The GPS is broken, right? He's now off the map.
Absolutely.
We are now light years from what the message ought to be right now.
Somebody go and slap that phone right out of his hands and just keep it from him for a week. If they just did that, he would rise in the polls and be doing well. But no, he's got to respond. He's got to respond.
And it just is, oh, by the way, the image, allegedly came from some white nationalist or anti-Semitic. You'd like to think somebody would at least recognize having both these star, a six-pointed star. Let's not even say it's automatically a Star of David, and money in the background, and saying Hillary's corrupt. Gee, this might have a subtext. This might have a context that might come across the wrong way. But even again, he still wants to fight about this when he should be emphasizing, Hillary Clinton endangered national security. The New York Times had a great piece today, basically talked to computer experts who basically said, Comey couldn't prove it, but it's pretty clear she got hacked. She got hacked by Russian intelligence.
She did, yes.
Probably there's really no dispute about that right now. And oh, by the way, she's using this insecure cell phone and this insecure system and sending emails over this completely insecure system, probably while she's in Russia and probably while she's in China and probably while she's in Eastern Europe. So they got it. It's gone. It's it's just like, this is a really good argument of why Hillary Clinton should not be president of the United States. And instead of this, he's arguing about the coloring books for Frozen. Look, I'm a never Trump guy, and a lot of people don't like that. Fine. If I were a Trump skeptic, like you seeing Hillary get away with this, I completely understand why so many of my friends are like, I can't stand Trump, but I got to punish Hillary. I'm voting for Trump. I see where you're coming from that. When Hillary walks on stuff like that, it's a really compelling case. But I look at this Frozen tweet, and I'm like, Donald, you got to meet me halfway. You gotta rise to the occasion. This isn't just a softball over the hanging over the plate. This is T-ball. He did just swing and miss. He hit himself with the bat.
He needs a VP pick so bad, and somebody that can kind of help usher him through this whole thing. So, all right. So there's your good, bad, ugly, crazy, stupid, all of it mixed up in one. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to get back on just having a little bit of fun here on the 3 Martini Lunch. Until then, I am Rich McFadden in for Greg Columbus. He is Jim Garrity with the National Review, and that is your 3 Martini Lunch for today. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks to you, Rich. Take care.